You can absolutely conquer whatever it is you choose to confront. In this show, we talk PTG, we listen and believe, we support and empower.
Hey, that's what I always dreamed of, but I was nervous sometimes.
Yeah.
Each time I moved a little closer and a little closer
Yeah.
and a little closer,
Yeah.
and some told me, just take a leap of faith.
There you
Go
go.
ahead, let's jump.
Ready? Let's go. Leap of faith. There you go. Whoa.
Whether you have experienced domestic violence personally or not, someone you know has. Your circle of family, friends, acquaintances, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men will experience domestic violence at some point in their life. Physical abuse is only one of the many forms of domestic violence. Survivors also report experience of verbal, emotional, spiritual, sexual, financial, electronic, and so much more. Domestic violence does not discriminate. It can leave you traumatized and devastated, mentally, emotionally, financially. You can find yourself homeless, jobless, helpless. The list can go on. There's blankets of insecurities, triggers, doubts, and other residual effects that become hurdles that impact our life as we do our best to move on. Many people associate butterflies with a sense of freedom. We've been taught along the way to focus on the transformation that takes place inside of the cocoon. I invite you to take a moment to conceptualize all the odds the caterpillar was up against and needed to defeat in order to get to a safe place, to build its cocoon and actually experience the transformation. My name is A. Garcia. I am a mother and survivor of a double attempted homicide. Now, I'm dedicating my life to take yours to the next level by experiencing post-traumatic growth to begin a new chapter in your life. Let's get started on this journey together. Garcia here, and welcome to Confronting Domestic Violence. For what you want to conquer, you need to confront. This show is not intended to ignite any triggers, but we will be talking about some serious and sensitive topics. Today, I have a beautiful guest. Her name is Valerie, and she is willing to share her story, her trials, her tribulations, and where she is today. So please welcome Valerie to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
What an honor. We've had an opportunity to speak behind the scenes a couple different times, and we've just bonded over topics and passions, and of course, definitely related to some journeys and trauma and healing. And
Yes.
I am just so honored to have you here and for you to openly and willingly share whatever you want and wherever you would like to begin. And from there, we'll just take it from there. Nothing is premeditated. There's no questions that go out prior to the show. We just keep it real and authentic here.
Yes, and that's what I love. Because I think that transparency and authenticity always wins because people don't want to hear a prefabricated story. I know that I don't. I want you to tell me the real truth because the truth is, like they say, it's going to set you free. So my journey is my journey. And I feel as though my journey happened so that I can tell my journey to other women, to empower them, to equip them and educate them so that they hopefully will not fall into the hands of the abuser like I did. Because if you don't know, you can fall into the trap very easily because some of the things that they say, some of the things that they do, you think are cute, or you think that he really loves me and he's doing that to protect me, when in actuality, he's doing that to control you, to set you up for all the things that he is planning to do for you. I know my abuser, I thought he was my knight in shining armor, and it turned out to be my knight in rusted armor. And a lot of times I met him on a dating site. And one of the things that I've written a book about my journey, and it is called Knight in Rusted Armor. is that what we tell people, what we tell these men online, we tell them too much. And we innocently tell them too much. And we also have to recognize where you are emotionally when you meet these people, that they can understand, because this is what they do all the time. So they know your vulnerability, they know your loneliness, they know you're looking for something. And so they ask you all the right questions. And when you meet, they do all the right things in the beginning.
Wow, that's a lot just right there in itself, because we're talking about online, which means you don't know where they actually are in the world, who they actually are in the world. And I'm so inclined to ask, outside of what you would share once they start messaging you, what about what you're sharing on social media?
And this particular person researches you,
That's what
and
I'm saying. Yeah.
it's all your information on social media, and he asks all the right questions. And for me, I was married for 34 years, and I got married when I was in my 20s. My life of being married was somewhat a part of where I should have been dating and been experiencing different things. All I knew was my husband, who he was a great husband. So why would I think that men do this? Yes, I hear about it all the time. But what we don't understand is that domestic violence has copious layers. It's not just physical, narcissism and sex trafficking and control and power. And they're very good at what they do, especially if they're like a narcissist or want to control you. They're very clever in the questions that they ask. And when you finally do meet, you think that they're your knight in shining armor, because they're doing everything that you already told them. Nothing that they came to a conclusion to do. They're doing what you told them you liked, saying the things that I want him to say, that I want him to do this. I like a man who does this. I like a man who smells good. I like a man who wears nice clothes. I like a man, I like a man, I like a man. And he becomes that man. He sends the representative. And then eventually you find out who the real person is. And unfortunately, one of the things that I learned as a domestic violence advocate is that what happened to you, what he does to you, is never what you have caused. I want women to stop blaming themselves and saying, I did this and that's why he did that. No, he has some type of issue, some type of problem. But what I want the women to own is that your emotional state at that time. Were you vulnerable? Were you lonely? Were you looking for love? What were you looking for? Where was your self esteem? How did you feel about yourself that you didn't see those red flags, that you didn't, or you seen them and you wanted to think they were yellow? So I'm going to proceed with caution.
And and thank you for sharing that. I want to scale back just a little bit, because there's so much from what you started sharing versus where we are right now. There's a lot of meat inside of that start and finish. So let's dig into that a little bit. Let's talk about two things at the same time. When you're out there on social media and or dating sites and you're looking to find this partner, this man, and you start engaging. So the first thing is, okay, understand what mental and emotional state you're in at that time. So basically, if you're feeling lonely, don't let him know that you're lonely. Don't come across desperate. Don't show all your cards at one time. And what are some of the questions that we should be looking out for?
A lot of things that they ask are, so what type of man did you have before? And what didn't you like about him? And what are you looking for in the man that you desire now? And then they'll start telling you somewhat about something about themselves. And then they will start talking about the person they had before you. You know, how she wasn't any good and she wasn't this, she wasn't that. And so I know that I don't want that in you. I want you to be this, that, and the other, because this is what you're looking for in me. So where do you work? What kind of work do you do? I have even been asked like about how much money do you make a year? And some of those online dating sites ask you that. What's your financial income? Why do you need to know that? I'm poor. That's what I'm gonna put on. Put your poor.
Right.
But you just type it all in there because you're all excited. Oh, they want to know what? Oh, here we are. And you're so desperate. You're so vulnerable. You could have just left a bad relationship, or like me, I had been married for 34 years. My husband passed away. I went through 4 years of a deep depression in the loss of my husband. And then I decided to date. And he was the first person I talked to. And he just was the greatest thing. Handsome, articulate, had a good job, all of the things that you want. But where do you live? Ask him those questions. Where do you live? Oh, I live such and such a place. Hmm. You don't look like you live there. But they're very evasive as to giving that same information back to you. They want all your information, but they don't want to give any information about themselves. How about you when you come over here? How come we come over to your house? Let's go over and visit your house. Oh, you know what? I really don't feel like I'm over here now because this particular person didn't live in the state that I lived in. They lived quite a ways from me. And I'm here now. He would always say, I'm going to go back and get some of my things so I can have things here and have things there. And I was like, oh, okay, so we're going to go to your house now? Yeah, that would be during the week because we would always want to do it on the weekend. So let's go back to your house. We're going to your house this weekend, right? Yeah. And then when the weekend, I just got here, I'm tired. I don't want to go to my house. Where do you live? What's your address? I live in this state that he lived in, near this place, this park, a very well-known park. And never any information about themselves, only wanted information about me. What did you used to do before that? If we get together, what bank do you want to use? Why do you need to know that? But you're so naive. I caught on to some of that. Like, you don't need to know that information. Then I had a business at the time. Oh, let me help you get your business on the radio because I know in my area, the local radio station. Oh, I know them people. How do you know them people? You don't even live around here. So if you give me money, I can get you on the radio to advertise because I was moving from one place to another, my business. And we'll promote the launch and all these big people will come because I know all these people. And I'm like, if you just give me this amount of money, no, I'm not going to do that. And then at first it was good. I liked it, the attention. He started not wanting me to be around my family, especially my daughter. My daughter and my son-in-law immediately didn't like him. One of their friends who was a person, a criminal to like somewhat, and come to find out this guy is also a big time criminal. So not only was he a domestic abuser, but he was a criminal too. He said when he met him, he knew that he wasn't who he said he was. And no, he really cares for me because he's telling me all these things. And I had so many red flags that I did not want to identify. And then again, some things I knew, some things I didn't know. Because like I said, I got married when I was 21 years old. And when my husband passed, I was in my 50s. So in the time in my 20s when people are normally dating, I was married. So I don't know all the different things that men do, all the different tricks they play, all the different things they say. So I took him at face value that he was who he said he was. And everything was a lie. He destroyed my life.
So here you are, and I am so sorry that you went through that. And there are so many of us that are left with a devastation and a life flipped upside down. And I can clearly see how this has played out because here you are married 34 years. Since you're 21, you were mourning for 4 years. You said you were in a deep depression. And by the time you got through that grieving from your significant loss, a life devastating moment here, and you decide to move on, you take this brave, bold move and decide that you want to find a companion again. And you meet this guy, and like you said, you're naive because you haven't seen or experienced the behaviors of a narcissist or a player. And 30 years ago, online social media, all that stuff just didn't exist anyways.
Right.
And here you are opening yourself up, being vulnerable, and you didn't know what the flags were. You felt some things instinctively, and thank goodness you listened to that inner voice and said no. But here you are, an established businesswoman, a professional, a
Mhm.
beautiful woman that just went through a journey of healing. And then here you are with somebody you didn't even know was a bona fide criminal.
Yes, it was rough. It was rough. If you've I'm trying to think of that Tyler Perry movie. I think I probably try to just forget about the movie, but that movie about a domestic violence, a older woman meeting a younger man. He manipulated her. She worked for at a bank. Oh God, I can't think of the movie. That was my story. I actually did a workshop where I had people come to my facility, and I had domestic violence advocates. I had mental health people there because you never know what could be said to trigger someone. People could not believe that it was like a mirror of my story. I think Tyler Perry was watching me and did it with someone else, but it was devastating. The things that he did, how he was so cunning and but sweet and nice at the same time, that everybody else could see it but me because I was in such a daze. Oh my God, this guy, he's everything, always going out to dinner, always buying me things, just treated me like a queen. But the queen became the peasant at the end. He started to show his real self. In the beginning, he was the knight in shining armor. And then near the end, when I started catching on to him, he became more violent, more demanding, and threatening to kill my son. It was a really devastating journey for someone just coming out of a deep depression and meeting someone like this and not having any, I guess, for lack of a better term, dating skills because I hadn't dated. I met my husband, we got married, and that was it. So I was very naive when it came to things like that. And he knew that. And come to find out, this is what he does. He has a big ring of people that he works with. When he tells you he's calling his job or calling this when you make you, whatever he wants to do to make you think this is what he's doing, he calls his people. The detectives and the police officers that I worked with, because I had to get some items back that he took from me, said if I had have known the type of man he was, I wouldn't have even given him my name. But I look back on that and it was just another journey in my life. And what I like to do is I just like to turn those things around and write about them. And I'm healed from that, so I can write about that. And in my healing, which was the most bizarre thing, is that I realized that I was in a domestic violence relationship prior, many years ago. And I think I just suppressed it because I think back in the day, I would say I'm in my 60s now. I was in my late 20s, no, early 30s. I was in my early 30s. And he physically abused me. But back then they would say, oh, that's because he drinks or he does drugs or his paycheck wasn't right. We used to make up all kinds of stupid things as to why they were doing the things to the women that they were doing, but it was actually domestic violence that we just didn't identify it as that. And I got my behind beat a lot and never thought of it that way. But then after going through it and studying to become a domestic violence advocate, it made me remember all the different things that happened in my life.
Wow. Amazing that, or interesting that it took counseling or coaching for you to be able to track all the way back what was suppressed and what you were exposed to and or experienced, and then be able to identify it as such and then associate it to what you were experiencing real time. Now, you said some very heavy things. You said this guy was threatening to kill your son. How long were you guys an item? How long did it take you to realize who you were actually dealing with? And by that time, what was your escape plan?
Believe it or not, it was only 3 months. And in that time, he was saying that he was a promoter, a sports promoter. I have a grandson who plays basketball, who's trying to get seen in with a pro or overseas. And oh, I can do that because I work for this particular organization. I know all these people. I know some of the local, I think in my area, the 76ers is the popular team in my area where I'm at, the pro basketball player team here. I know people there. I can get him in with those people, but you have to pay me for some photography. I'm like, my son's a photographer. No, he doesn't do the type of photography that they want. They want this particular type of photography, all of his shots, different action shots and things like that. Okay, I talked to them and they want to do it because they're trying to get their son seen. It's usually $2,000, but I'm only going to charge you 500. So they gave him the 500, but because they just weren't feeling him, they gave him the money via PayPal. So he got the money and never produced any of that. So they went to PayPal and got their money back. That's when he became violent and called me threatening to, I can't even say the things that he said here, but to the point that I was so afraid of him. And I still had to deal with him because he had some things of mine that I wanted back. So I was trying to get myself together enough to not be so afraid to be able to do what I needed to do to get him out of my life. What I did was, and he knew that I knew, because he had stolen, I had bought that for my business and new phones. So everybody, all the therapists could have their phone and their own iPad, like when they scheduled and all. So they didn't have to do it at one computer. And I had them put away in the room, still in the bag, still in the boxes, all that. No, unbeknownst to me, he had taken them and sold them. But I had one on my table that I was using. And he was like, he came in the house one time and he said, "Where's that iPad?" Because now I'm getting wise to him. And I realized that now my iPads and everything is gone. So I'm trying to get that stuff back. I moved that one particular iPad and he calls me. I never forget, I was massaging somebody. He calls me, "Where is the iPad?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" "The iPad that was on the table. I wanted to set it up for you so that you could be able to use it." I said, "My son knows how to do that. He's a team manager. He can do that for me." "No, I want the iPad back at the house." I said, "I took it." And I was so amazed how quickly I could think because now I'm so afraid. I just want to think quick on my feet. "Oh, the maintenance people were coming in and it was sitting out as brand new. So I took it and brought it to the shop with me." "Okay, good. You brought it to the shop with you? Then bring it back. I want it back here by today." I'm like, "That's my iPad. I want it back here by today. I need to show you how to hook it up to your laptop." Of course, I didn't bring it back. I locked everything. I had taken a lot of things to my studio and had them locked up. And that's when I began to see what he was doing. So when he would leave, I would go throughout my house looking for things that he had taken. And that's when I found out he had taken the iPads. And so now I'm like, oh my God, I got to get this man out of my house. So I had called the apartment complex and asked them to come change the locks. I wanted them to do it on Wednesday because on usually Monday and Tuesday, he would stay at my apartment. Wednesday, he would go back to where he lived. So I had it planned on Wednesday. But this particular Tuesday, he went on Tuesday instead of Wednesday. I came home early. I just kept hearing in my spirit to go home. I'm like, no, I got to go to school. I was going to a school in the city where there was no parking, but if you went at a certain time, you could find parking. So I would always go real early so I could find a parking spot. No, go home. I'm like, no, I need to go to the city and go to school. Go home. So I went home, and every time he would come to my house, he had a composition book out. And when I would come in the house, he would put it away. He wouldn't grab it and be like, oh, here she comes, put it away. He would just casually talk and put it back in his book bag, and it wouldn't come out anymore. When he left the house, he would never leave that book out or the book bag. So this particular day that I went home, that I kept hearing in my spirit to go home, and I walked in the door, it was go look in the drawer. I could hear all of this so vividly. I go to look in the drawer, and that book is in there. That composition book is in there. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the book. And I'm so afraid of him. He's not even there. I'm afraid to touch the book. I'm like, I'm not touching it. And I'm like, and I could hear in my spirit no, look through the book. So now I'm so afraid. I'm telling you, I can't even tell you how afraid I was. My body was shaking. I didn't know if he's going to come in and catch me. So I briefly look through the book. No, look through the book. I looked through the book. I'll never forget. My deceased husband's Social Security information was in there. I still had a checkbook of his at my house. He had a couple checks. He didn't have the whole checkbook. He just took a couple checks. All of my checks from all of my accounts that I had closed or open was in that book. There was a pawn ticket in there. He had stolen my wedding rings and my husband's wedding ring. He didn't pawn them. He took them and got a loan on them. So that was in there. So that was a good thing because I never knew he took those. All of my clients' credit card information was in there.
Oh my gosh.
My building was over top of a doctor's office, and on that side where I was, the basement. So there were patients' charts in there. He had some of their cover sheets in that book. He had in the front of the book all different types of women, their names, their addresses, their social media information. So that's why I'm saying, please be careful what you post on social media. He even had your LinkedIn. If you were on LinkedIn, he had that. And he had different things like check her out on social media, check her out on LinkedIn. She's sexy. She has this peculiar laugh. It was like a little summary of each woman, pages and pages. Women, there was a show called The Voice at one time. Not The Voice. Yeah, The Voice. He had somebody from The Voice. There was another show with P. Diddy or whatever he calls himself now. He had some of those women in there. A Grammy Award-winning singer in there. These are all women that he manipulated and took advantage of. And then he had some other rackets that he was doing that was in there. All the forms were in there that he was using to tell people. And not only that, he had 7 aliases.
Oh my gosh.
And that was in there because his different licenses were in there. His information was in there.
Oh.
All different types of names. Some of them were his name with other names added. It was horrible. I'm smiling now, but it was horrible. And when that Tuesday, I called my kids and you know what they said to me? I'm like, can you please come help me? They were like, finally, Mom, finally. And I'm crying and I'm hysterical. And I think they got there in 5 minutes. I think they came through the ground. And they were like, finally, Mom. And that guy he's like my son. He calls me his mom. He's their friend, calls me his mom. He said, Mom, I tried to tell you. He said, I know. I was in jail with those type of people.
Mm.
So they come in and they're like, this is the plan. We're going to change the locks. We're going to call the police because he was due back that night. Stay here and wait. They stayed all night long. The police came. I showed them all the different things. I gave them all, because he left everything there. That I don't even know why he did. He left his laptops there, everything. So I gave the police all that. Then I went to look for something in the closet, and his shoebox fell. Inside of that shoebox, inside the shoe, was all my jewelry, all my high-end jewelry, all my gold, all my silver. He was getting ready to do something with that as well. The police officers tell me, if he comes, call us. So they stayed like almost to 1 or 2 o'clock at night. I think he was there and he just was waiting for them to leave. So as soon as they left, he came. My door is locked. The locks are changed. I'm hysterical in the house. And I'm calling my daughter, not the police. I'm calling my daughter. She said, Mom, just called the police. The police said they would come right away and pick him up. So I called the police. They come and get him. They let him go because the name that I knew him as wasn't the name on the license that he had. But you picked him up from my description. So you know it's who I'm telling you he is.
Right. And you already told him all the aliases.
They let him go. Now I'm back at the police station. I was there for a few hours. So one of the police officers tell me, you have to come back tomorrow. I said, I have clients. I have to, no, you have to come back tomorrow. This man is dangerous. So now I'm afraid. So I went back the next day and I talked to the police officers. I got a restraining order. Come to find out he was married. That's how I found out about the group of people that he works with. And the saga continued for a year. I had to go to family court. I had to go to criminal court. I went to counseling because I was devastated. I was like, how could someone do that to another human being?
Right.
You know, and no remorse, and take everything that you have. And then he was calling me and I wouldn't answer. He would leave me a voicemail. I'm really sorry. I really love you. Can you just let me come back? Had him arrested. They only arrest him where I live for 24 hours. I had this code. I'm thinking, oh, if I don't give you the code, does that mean he gets to stay in? So they call me. They're like, so for him, it was 48 hours. It wasn't 24. It was 48 hours. They were calling to tell me that he was being released. Could they have the code? And I'm like, what do you need the code for? You're releasing it. If I don't tell you the code, are you going to release him? Yeah, we just want the code so we know that you're the right person that we should be calling. What? So I'm like, I can't even believe that this man is, with his criminal record, we looked him up. He's done so many things all over. He would travel to wherever you are to get what he wants from you.
And he's a married man doing that.
But his wife was in on it.
Oh, wow.
It was crazy. It was just so crazy. And I had to get myself together. Of course, like I said, I went to therapy. That was difficult because I remember when they told me, first they talked to you and they set everything up. When you go to the shelters, to the domestic violence houses that help you. And so I go to the therapy. I'm like, I'm not sitting at the table. I don't belong at the table with them. This is just a happenstance thing. So I'm sitting over in the back, they're all at the table, and I'm listening to their stories, and I'm like, oh my God, these people. And then they had that control wheel.
The power and control wheel, yes.
And I had my copy over there in my corner because I'm not coming to the table because I don't belong there. I'm like, oh my God, he did that. He did that. He did that. The whole daggone wheel was all him. Everything. So I'm listening to the stories and I'm engaging a little bit because they were like, do you have something to say? I'm like, no, I told you I don't belong here. I'm not talking to none of you. Then as they go through the different categories on the power and control wheel, I forgot what this, using economic abuse.
Oh, yes.
They said something else. I said, no, this is how he uses economic abuse. I have some friends that have restaurants that are doing well. I have some friends that are big businessmen making millions of dollars. He made me introduce him to them. He tried to manipulate their businesses by using me as the go-to. And they said, we never thought of it like that. I said, yeah, that's what he did. And I'm sure other people do the same thing. Then I felt comfortable. So I came back, and I came back every week. But then I realized that I belonged there, that I was hurting just like everybody else. And then to hear everybody's stories. There was a woman there who was abused. Her husband was a police officer. She had she couldn't get any help because his friends are his friends.
Yep.
Her sister was killed by her abuser. And just to hear her story every week, it just saddened me. Other women who they tried to set the house on fire with the women and the kids in there. The abuse, the physical abuse that they went through, even going to their jobs, to their churches, starting things at the churches, abusing them at the churches. And my little thing and it wasn't little, but I'm like, oh my God, everybody has a story. And until you realize, I remember thinking about the domestic violence as they just beat you. Because my girlfriend was in a domestic violence relationship and he beat her till the end where he tried to kill her. She has no use of her arm to this day because he stabbed her so many times because he meant to kill her this time. And I was like, why don't you just leave? Just get your stuff and go. That's all you got to do. And in that counseling, in that therapy, you learn all the reasons why they don't leave. And it's not because they want to stay. They have several reasons why they stay. It's not that easy for you to leave. For me, it was that easy because I wasn't in it that long. And I was established. I had a business. I was retired. I had a good pension, a good Social Security. So some of those are the reasons why they can't leave. I could leave. I just get out, go. So to listen to their stories was so devastating. So I wanted to continue to be able to help women by telling my story and helping to empower them, helping them to find their voice and stop thinking of themselves as nobodies. Find your self-worth, your self-esteem, educate them, and help them to begin to heal. So that's why I wrote my book, because there are women like me who don't know the red flags because some of them are very obvious and some of them are not. And depending on where you are emotionally, some of the things that they do, you will welcome that because it's the attention that you've been looking for. It's the money you've been looking for. It's all of those types of things that some women don't have. For me, I was just blessed to not have to worry about those types of things. Some women that are in the relationship, they have kids by these men. They can't leave because they don't have any place to go. They don't have any insurance. They don't have a job. He threatens to take their kids. And to me, I know this sounds really far-fetched, but these women are giving their lives for their children so that their children can have a place to live, so that their children can eat, so that their children can have insurance. So they allow the men to abuse them because that's how much they love their kids. And that's not every situation, but that's something that I gleaned from going to the therapy with these women, to listen to their stories and like how they couldn't do it because their kids would suffer. And then sometimes they try to leave, they go to a shelter, the shelter takes them through so much crap, they just go back. So that's one of the things I have in my book is an oath that I want people to read and sign. And so you can stop thinking that this is why you don't leave, that you should do this, you should do that. No, you don't know. Because everybody's story is different. Everybody's reason is different. It's not what you come to a conclusion in your little finite mind because you're not in that situation.
Right.
You talk about what you don't know about. If you haven't walked in my shoes, don't even try to tie my laces because you can't.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And as parents, it's not so much do as I say, not as I do. They are watching us, they are listening to us, they can feel us, they know when we're not good. And I happen to say that what we do emotionally feeds our children. So if we are staying there and taking the abuse, thinking that our kids don't know and don't see and can't feel, we're wrong. And how is that affecting them for their adulthood? How is that preparing them? How is that, like I said, how are we emotionally feeding them based on our own personal behaviors and decisions when we're in those circumstances, knowing that we don't belong, knowing that it's unsafe, but we stay because we love our kids? I think that, like you said, all of us walk a different journey. We have different experiences, different belief systems, different fear factors. Because at the end of the day, it's the fear factor that keeps us there because we're afraid of the unknown when it comes down to it.
Yes.
Like you said, finances, health insurance, this, that, the other. Nothing stays the same. Every single day, something is changing in the world, something can change in your situation. It's taking the initiative to do what is right for you. Because if you're not right, you're not going to be able to do for your kids. Just
Right.
same way as if you're sick and down, you're not
Right.
going to be able to care for. So to take care of ourselves is definitely taking care of our children. And yeah, it's really sad that so many of us don't see the flags, don't know the flags, and then by the time we do, we're so deep in that we're afraid to make the change that we need to make.
Yes.
And I really just applaud you for being as strong as you were in that short amount of time to identify it, take action, stick to your choice, stand your ground, call in the community that has your back for sure, and then turn around and give something to offer to everybody who's going through it. And for me, I talk about post traumatic growth a lot, and you definitely are a definition of that, starting from getting married at 21 to living a happy, having a happy marriage. Nothing is perfect and no marriage is perfect, but it was good enough that you didn't even know what certain narcissistic abusive behaviors were. And then after you went through and experienced it for yourself and had the strength to at least identify what the heck this guy is doing when your back is turned, and then listening to your instincts, you went home and you found out. And
Mhm.
from that moment, you made the choice and you never looked back. Although you were stuck dealing with it for a year and some
Right.
change, you got your book out, you got your certificate. I know you didn't say it yet, but you are a certified advocate.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that is, you're taking leaps and bounds. And I just want to acknowledge that and honor you for that and just thank you for that. For me, for all the listeners, would you like to tell people where they can find you?
You can find me on Facebook at Valerie at Purpose for Wellness. My books are on Amazon. You can look them up under Valerie Stansel. The Knight in Rusted Armor workbook I would like to offer to your viewers. It is $20, but I would like to offer it to your viewers for $10. I will send $10 plus shipping and handling. I will personally sign it. I think it's a really good book. And that, of course, because I wrote it, but it's a book that will help you identify a lot of things that you might not even know, like some of the red flags that you don't even know are red flags. And I love that oath that I put in there because I just feel really passionate about you not judging people that are victims because you don't know their story. I talk about the things that I use to heal in there. In the chapters, after the chapters, there's some little worksheets for you to do so that you can actually think about what you read and think about what you might be going through or the questions that you may have regarding the particular chapters and the particular things that I talk about. And I just think it's a really informative book. If I had that when I was dating, hopefully I wouldn't have made that mistake. And that's why I have that, because I don't want anyone to go through what I went through. Even though mine was for a short period of time, there are some women that get in it and can't get out. And I want you to be able to identify it so that you can make a quick decision, like I made a quick decision, and know that that wasn't the right person for me. And it has the wheel, the equality wheel, the power and control wheel, all different types of resources in there for you. But it's a little good workbook. I'm really
I,
proud of it.
I appreciate that. I'm proud of it too. And so our listeners know, and so that you know that that the request is coming from the listeners to receive a signed copy of that book. What is the link for that?
Can I send that to you?
Yes,
Because
I
I
will
don't
put it
have,
in the,
yeah, I'll send it to you
yep.
because it's a bit.ly and I don't have it on me. I have it, but it'll take too much to tell you. So I'll just
Yep,
send it
no
to you.
problem. No problem. I'll put it on with the episode. And so I have three other questions I would like to ask. Do you have a wounds to wisdom statement that you would like to share?
The rules, the wisdom for me is when you see a red flag, don't proceed with caution. Good, stop. I can't say that enough. He would say things to me and it was almost like he was testing me to see if I knew who he was. Don't ever negate your gut feeling. Even if you don't know it's a red flag, you know that something is not right. So don't not listen to that inner voice. Don't not listen to something that you see going on that you know is not right.
Thank you for that. Absolutely. Yes, 100%. I agree to that. And then out of respect, I did not ask anything about your rest in peace deceased husband. However, I did hear you mention that you realized that you were in a domestic violence abusive situation in your later 30s. Was that during that time? Was that during your
Yeah,
marriage?
I think in the 30s now. So it must have been because I married him when I was 22. So that must have been, dag, that was when I was a teenager then. Because I married him when I was 22. So it had to be when I was between like 18 and 20. You're correct. Because when I was in my 30s, I was married to him. So it wasn't in my 30s. So it was when I was either between 18 to 21.
Yeah. So you were in that. So that was, and that's all you knew was the physical.
Right. And it was bad. My mom had come, I had to get cysts taken out of my head from where he would he hit me with a vase in my head.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes narcissists are silent killers. And that's when you need to listen, like you said, to your spirit and to your intuition. Do not negate that for anything. It's there for a reason. And as women, we need to tap in instead of trying to talk ourselves out.
That wasn't my husband. A lot of people were like, "Oh, it was your husband?" No, my husband he was a great man. If he hadn't passed away, I would still be married to him. But on the good end, I just recently got married again. I didn't let any of that stymie me from moving forward. That's another thing that I would like to tell women. Don't allow your past to dictate your future because there is a purpose in your pain and there's a purpose in the plan that has been predestinated for you. So I am happily married and this is the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
I love it. I love it. And that was going to be my last question. Where are you today? What's going on today? So, but I already knew that from behind the scenes, but I definitely wanted to let the listeners know for all of those reasons. There is life after abuse.
Yes.
Just make sure that you work on yourself before you put yourself out there because you might be the one bringing the red flags. And if you're gonna put yourself out there, be correct so you can understand what correct looks like. And
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
and Valerie, with your experience and exposure and this journey that you took us through together, thank you for sharing some of those things to look out for. And again, just to highlight that, what state mentally and emotionally are you in when you are looking for a companionship or a partner? That is, I think, so solid and such great advice to check yourself first so you are able to have a bit more control of what you disclose.
Yeah,
I like it.
absolutely. And it makes you more, to me, your self-worth is more important than anything. And to know where you are in your mind, physically, spiritually, emotionally, you can't do good things with someone else if you're all messed up. You're still going to bleed on people. I know some of the women that I coach go from one bad relationship to another. They don't take time to heal. Oh, he was bad, so let me go to the next guy who's just like this guy. And I don't understand why I keep choosing the same guy, because you haven't allowed yourself to heal. Take time to heal. If you don't, you can't heal from what you won't reveal in yourself. You have to identify what's going on with you. Why did I, pick this person? Why did I allow this to happen? Where am I at emotionally?
Yep. And even after you go through that journey, and if you're still struggling to identify who you are, identify who you're not. So then you're already still building your boundaries and your tolerance levels around that. And it will expand and evolve as you do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. We have wisdom for days. Thank you so much for being a part of Confronting Domestic Violence, where no one should suffer alone. And we help real-time victims with real-time resources, allowing them to get to a safe place when they have one to go to, but not the means to get there. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. And we have a lot of work to do together, sister. We sure do.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I'm so
Thank you.
excited.
I am too. Yep. And it's already started. So thank you so much for being here. And I will see you again shortly.
All right. Thank you.
Confronting Domestic Violence is a 501c3. All contributions, volunteers, and sponsorships are welcomed. It takes a community to make a difference. Nobody should suffer alone. Please scan the QR code.